Are you a young adult? Is navigating your way through the adult world proving to be a difficult task for you? Don't you ever wish that somebody in your position could tell you the right steps instead of always having to take a chance and guess your way through life? Well, lucky for you, there is. If you want to further your career or business, or if you're just having a tough time with adulting, check out Before You Adult, What the Classroom Doesn't Teach You. This book will help you master your finances, time, relationships, and even yourself. Use my promo code LittyMob15 for a 15% off discount on the website www.theonereader.com, located right below in my bio. See how this audio or paperback book can change your life today. Written by Dewan Reader, this is a good one. Check it out, guys.
Watch when I drop this, tank no bait. Telling everybody pay me more. And I got a couple bands on me right now, I ain't gonna say no more. She fucked me in the studio cause I could make a chorus. See niggas and they feelings though, what the fuck you hate for?
When you talk about the Detroit Lions secondary, depending on who you're talking to, you're going to get some pretty mixed reviews. In 2019, the Detroit Lions statistically had the worst pass defense in the NFL, ranking 31st in attempts because teams passed on them all day, and ranking 32nd in yards because they couldn't stop anybody. On top of that, the team ranked 27th in passing touchdowns allowed and 30th in interceptions. Now, you might be asking yourself, what possible mixed signal could there be? I mean, they sucked, obviously, right? Well, of course, there is always that subsection of fans who will find an excuse for anybody, and this year they say the passing defense sucked because of the lack of pass rush. Well, that's convenient, I'll admit, but as a guy who live streamed every game last year, and pass rush wasn't going to stop the Lions from getting destroyed on drag routes across the middle of the field. I mean, it wasn't as if the Lions were getting mossed on deep balls all day. Teams actually averaged about 7 yards per pass on the Lions, which is absolutely terrible and ranked 28th in the NFL. But it doesn't verify any notion that the passes were only being completed because quarterbacks had all day to throw. Teams didn't need to let long passing plays develop downfield. They simply destroyed Detroit's press man scheme. See, the glory days of the Terrell Austin defense, where Darius Slay had his career high in interceptions and Glover Quinn was roaming the middle of the field, the Lions actually played more cover 3 than anything else. But again, the Detroit media sold a lie to the fans that cornerbacks like ex-Lions defensive back Darius Slay were dominating wide receivers in man-to-man coverage. Well, actually, it is true, but to an extent. While Slay did a fine job of playing man-to-man on a lot of wide receivers, and he did travel with wide receivers as well, Terrell Austin would actually disguise cover 3 looks to make it seem as if it was in man-to-man coverage, thus making it easier on cornerbacks because they could just sit over top of the wide receivers all day. And if the route broke inbound, Glover Quinn would be waiting to jump in and snag the interception. In 2018 and 2019, Patricia changed everything. No more disguising cover 3 as man-to-man. Instead, we run heavy man-to-man on the outside, and all of the exotic looks and stunts and disguises will come in the middle of the field, with either the hang safety that he loves to deploy or in the front 7 with the pass rush. You see, when the Lions did attempt to blitz extra men last season, it rarely ended in a sack, and most of the time it actually ended in an easy completion for a chunk gain. The Lions had a real problem with the secondary, and it started at the safety position. Quandre Diggs, another player that thrived in Austin's cover 3 scheme, allowing him to roam the field and play the quarterback more than try to dance with these athletic wide receivers. Once his role changed in Patricia's defense, you could tell he was out of his element. While Quandre was one of my favorite players early on in his tenure with the team, the little thumper at safety just wasn't athletic enough to cover large areas of the field from on an island. Add on the fact that he's 5'8" on a good day and struggled to get his hands on any balls, the front office has seen enough and traded Quandre Diggs to the Seahawks. At the time of the trade, Diggs was among the league leaders in missed tackles and was rated as the 61st rated safety in the NFL, behind Tavon Wilson, Tracy Walker, and even rookie Will Harris. Quandre's full stat line read 20 tackles and nothing else in 5 starts. The move stunned Lions fans, but it marked the beginning of a complete overhaul of the secondary for the Lions. The next move made, though, would prove to be the biggest. After the season ended, the Lions traded away their number 1 cornerback Darius to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 3rd-round pick, coming after Slay had his worst career season since his rookie year, and was still chirping about a contract extension. Slay, who is to this day being advertised as a shutdown corner in 14 games started, had 93 targets and allowed 52 completions. That's a 55% completion percentage, but he allowed 694 yards and gave up 13.3 yards per reception and 3 touchdowns. Quarterbacks had an 81.6 rating when they targeted him. And honestly, Slade left the front office no choice. He talks like he's the best. He's demanding a new contract after he's already gotten extended, but he allowed the 3rd most yards from scrimmage on the entire defense. He had to be traded. There was one more move, though, that completely went under the radar, and the Lions fans didn't much talk about it, but it still kind of made me sad personally. Tavon Wilson really took on a leadership role with this team, and while it seemed everybody else was struggling to adjust to Patricia's scheme, he thrived. Tavon finished as the highest rated member of the secondary and had a very good season serving as Detroit's box safety. Although Tavon was targeted 47 times and allowed 35 completions, he only gave up 237 yards on the entire year. That was the least amount of yards given up for any starter on Detroit's defense in 2019. And he only allowed 6.8 yards per reception. He also recorded a sack and a touchdown. While Tavon proved to be a valuable contributor to this struggling defense, his writing on the wall was written when the Lions drafted Will Harris out of Boston College. Will Harris held down that box safety role for ex-defensive coordinator Paul Pasqualoni and comes highly recommended. Patricia had Will Harris playing deep safety because Tavon Wilson was playing so well in the box and Harris was getting destroyed. Now with some new additions, Harris will not have to play deep anymore, and the 3rd-round pick is set to take over for the vet in his more comfortable position. I can't say this is a surprise move, but Tavon had a solid career in Detroit as a role player. But lucky for Lions fans, Patricia and Quinn wanted more than role players in their starting lineup. And that's exactly what we got. In comes newly hired defensive coordinator Corey Underlin, a well-liked players coach who's been known to rally the troops. Unlike the disciplinarian that ex-defensive coordinator Paul Pasqualoni was, the hope is that guys will play with a little more heart for him. And if they don't, they will for sure play for the newly acquired veteran the Lions got in a trade from the New England Patriots. I mean, I can't even call this a trade. I almost shed a tear because Bill Belichick must really have a ton of love for Matt Patricia. He gave a player with 10 interceptions in the last 3 years for nothing. He literally gave us the exact player that we were missing in the middle of the field for almost nothing. Duron Harmon may end up being the most valuable addition to this team this offseason. The man, now dubbed simply as the closer, has made a career in New England off of doing just that. He's the real big play Harmon. Ever humble and focused, adding a player like Harmon, who is already comfortable with the staff and the scheme, is huge for this struggling unit. Not only with his on-field play, but as a veteran and leader, having young safeties like Will Harris and Tracy Walker learned under his tutelage, is going to provide dividends for this team. See, Harmon is no role player. He's a baller. And standing next to him is another young baller, waiting to make his mark in this league. Tracy Walker, the cousin of Darius Slay and Justin Coleman, is another bright spot on the Lions defense. While he makes mistakes here and there, the 6'1" hybrid safety can also come down and play man-to-man coverage on wide receivers as well. The versatility that Walker brings is a huge plus in Patricia's defense, and I think he will shine. Corey Underland will have a lot of fun lining Harmon and Walker up all over the field. Walker is a playmaker in that back end, and adding more playmakers around him, like the Lions did this offseason, is going to make this group that much more dangerous. If the Lions want to run those 3 safety sets, you can see variations of Walker, Harmon, and Harris, or Curse. Either way, it's a lot of young talent, and it's really exciting to think about. But that's just step 1. The Lions have successfully replaced Quandre Diggs with a better and more proven vet, and given their young safeties a better veteran to learn from. But losing Darius Slay had to be addressed, and addressed seriously. And it was. The Lions knocked this free agent signing out of the park. Ex-Pro Bowler, NFL bloodline, hard worker, and never in the media. First round pick. You look up and down the board and Desmond Trufant checked all the boxes. There's a section of Lions fans who say he will never fill Darius Slay's shoes, but I actually challenge that. You see, Desmond Trufant has never had the career highs that Slay saw once in 2017, but Trufant has never seen the career lows that Darius Slay has seen, like in his first 2 years in Detroit. You see, since day one when Trufant took the field, he used all the techniques his brother Marcus, an ex-All-Pro cornerback for 10 plus years in this league, had taught him. And Desmond has been a steady top 15 cornerback every single year of his career. He's not the flashy media darling that Darius Slay is, but he's also not a big mouth crybaby that's going to complain about practicing in the snow in Detroit, Michigan, of all places. Irregardless of if he's going to come out against Miami the next game or is in Jamaica for that matter. Having that NFL pedigree in his veins produced a hard-working vet who is set to lead the way for all the cornerbacks this year. Desmond only played in 9 games last year and still managed to pull in more interceptions than Slay with 4, and Slay had 7 more games played. The Lions played it smart. They got a 3rd round pick in and sent a disgruntled and struggling cornerback out. And while Trufant is fitting in nicely in the D, Slay is getting destroyed by 33-year-old Deshaun Jackson in Philadelphia. Scored 2 for the Lions. But just adding 2 players wasn't going to be enough to fix this mess of the secondary. The Lions still had to attack the depth of this cornerback spot. And in doing so, they signed ex-New York Jet Darryl Roberts. Roberts has filled in for some spot starts throughout his career in New York and did so nicely. His play this season really showed that he had the tools to be successful in this league if he finds a home and can hone in on his technique. Well, lucky for Roberts, his new defensive coordinator is a defensive back coach. Roberts has everything Patricia likes on a cornerback. He's big, standing a little over 6 foot tall. He weighs 180 pounds, so he has great size for the position. He's extremely fast, clocked at a 4.36 40-yard dash coming out. But most importantly, the man is physical. He comes up and attacks like a safety. He's not afraid to come down and run support and lay the boom. The 4.3 speed to run with any wide receiver. As a project, I couldn't be more excited to see how he pans out. But there is somebody who might feel some type of way about his emergence, if he does have one. And that would be second-year man Amani Oruwariye. You see, all the things I said about Roberts are all the things that the Lions fans are ever so anxious to see from Amani. He played well in bits and pieces last year, but like everybody else on the roster, he couldn't cover anybody one-on-one and allowed a sky-high completion percentage. The good, though, he did manage to snag 2 INTs throughout, so that at least shows he is willing to go in and battle it out, play for play, regardless of if he gets beat or not. Kid's not a quitter and has the size and measurements of a good corner. Again, lucky for him, his new defensive coordinator is a defensive back coach. One thing Underland isn't going to be able to say this season is he doesn't have athletes. The Lions have gotten noticeably bigger and more physical in that secondary. They even added safety Jaron Curse from the Minnesota Vikings. He projects to compete with Will Harris for that box safety role. But Harris will have to leg up on that competition because Curse is going to serve a 3-game suspension, even if he makes a team. But standing at 6'4" and running a 4.6, he brings that physicality and violence that every defense needs at the safety position. Not to mention the Lions still have one of the best nickel corners in football in Justin Coleman. Coleman was on fire early to start the year and was all over the place, getting his hands on the football and forcing turnovers. But as the injury slowed the team down, so did his impact. Coleman, another quick cornerback with nice size, really showed he could be trusted to come in and punch a ball out or make a play in the air. He's looking to rebound off his solid start and maintain that excellence throughout the year. I'm sure he looks around at all the new faces and sees opportunities. But like everybody else, the entire unit has a lot of work to do if they want to rebound off of that terrible last year. You see the Lions tactfully attack the secondary in sections starting way back before the trade line in 2019. They set themselves up to go into the draft and completely change their secondary from worst to first with one draft pick. And they pulled the trigger. With the 3rd overall selection in the NFL draft, the Lions selected Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State, a higher rated cornerback than both Slay and Trufant coming out, and projected to have a higher ceiling than the both of them as well. The Lions drafted the first of 2 5-star blue chip recruits. Okudah is projected to come in and play a lot and early. Many fans list the Lions would have went ahead with Okudah and Slay, but in hindsight, that just seems like it would have been a terrible idea. Slay was a big mouth, me guy. I never heard him accept responsibility for the terrible on-field production last year, but I heard him multiple times complain about practices, contracts, and the head coach. Getting Okudah with Trufant is a much more tangible pairing. If there are 2 players you don't have to worry about getting into any trouble or not being focused, not being prepared, not being ready to go, and not being mentally available, it's these 2. Add in Duron Harmon, and now you've got 3 guys who can just operate at a different level mentally. And with Harmon and Trufant teaching Okudah the ins and outs of the game at this level, it's literally almost going to be impossible for him to not be successful. All the goals and hype placed into this kid is deserved. But at the end of the day, he's still going to have to strap up those pads and prove it like everybody else. If he were to fail or struggle, I love that we have 2 veterans with 2 different play styles and a ton of success in this league to give him those extra pointers. Rather than a one-year wonder like Slay, who believes we should pay him in 2020 for what he did in 2017. Nah, fam. I think the Lions handled this offseason about as well as you could have asked for when your team only has 3 wins. You're not going to be a free agency destination, and you got to stick it in the draft. But somehow the Lions still managed to bring in proven players at the peak of their careers, and that should be commended. And that's why I think the Lions secondary is going to be its most improved unit and maybe one of the best in the NFL. Hey man, just like all my sports content is always available on YouTube, all of my music is available on all streaming platforms as well. So y'all make sure y'all support the creator. Alright?
Watch when I drop this tank, no babe. Couldn't everybody pay me more. And I got a couple bands on me right now. I ain't gonna say no more. She fucked me in the studio cause I could make a chorus. See niggas in they feelings though. What the fuck you hate for?